guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled, Homeowner Association impersonated police and put up illegal private speed cameras to fine residents. I live in a neighborhood full of car lovers, and speeding has always been somewhat of an issue. It has never been anything too extreme, but enough for the neighborhood to notice. However, I also live in a homeowner association neighborhood. And unfortunately, the homeowner association in our neighborhood loved stepping over boundaries frequently. A situation a couple months ago regarding the speeding cars let us know just how comfortable they are overstepping boundaries as a homeowner association. A few months ago, everyone in the neighborhood got a letter in the mail stating that within a couple of weeks, the homeowner association would be putting up cameras and speed radars to buckle down on the speeding issues in the neighborhood. I would like to say that I am fond of holding reckless drivers accountable, but I must also say that this was not an issue that homeowner association could legally tackle. In their letters, they also threatened to issue speeding tickets to us. AKA, they were going to fine us every time they caught us speeding. There were so many flaws in this system. First of all, the streets are considered public roads and there was a lot of speculation of whether or not they could legally install cameras on public roads. Second of all, the ticket they would be issuing us were not even legitimate, so how was that in any way legal? The homeowner association does not have the legal authority to issue tickets like this. And last but not least, how would they even prove if someone speeding lived in the neighborhood? And what about delivery service drivers such as Uber Eats, FedEx, UPS, etc.? When asked about the use of the public road, the homeowner association president just stated that they would ask drivers not to come back. This was silly. What if someone Uber Eats or has a package getting delivered? The drivers cannot just be like, "Oh sorry, I'm not allowed to go on that road." The neighborhood obviously disagreed with this. While something had to be done about speeding, the way they were going about it was so wrong. Many residents offered other solutions such as putting in speed bump or putting a flashing radar sign up. Because of all the disagreement and buzz going on about this, the WA decided to hold a meeting. In the meeting, different options were discussed, opinions were expressed, and it was just overall very unproductive. Or so it seemed. A couple of days after the meeting, the homeowner association sent out a letter saying that because of the feedback from the neighborhood, that they would be putting a hold on this project. But instead, they would install cameras and radars on private roads, because it was legal, and collect data about speeding over the course of 90 days. To me, this was still absolutely ridiculous. They were wasting so much money collecting data and trying different things out on their own terms, when they could just get the city involved and have something as simple as speed bumps put in. However, in the process of all of this, the board sent out a survey asking for feedback about the plans with the cameras and whatnot. And not surprisingly, an overwhelming amount of people were against it. People were not against holding speeders accountable, but they wanted to go about it the right way, and more importantly, not through the homeowner association. It seemed like tackling this problem through the homeowner association was just causing more disrupting and chaos. But surprisingly, the homeowner association, more specifically the president, must have felt the heat from all of the negative feedback that residents were leaving on the survey. About a week or so after the surveys were sent out, it was announced that the WA president stepped down and gave up his position as president and passed that position along to someone else from the board members. Although nobody was really fond of any of the board members at this point, it was better than nothing. On top of that, they completely scrapped their plans to install cameras and radars on the private roads. Instead, they ended up installing speed bumps on the public roads and installed 2 flashing speed radars. So, they ended up doing what residents suggested in the first place. Got to love the homeowner association. The next story is titled, Rented a dumpster for construction waste and a neighbor is using it to dispose of old furniture. This could impact my construction timeline and cost a significant amount of money if I don't get it handled quickly. Upstate New York. I rented a dumpster to accommodate the waste that will be generated by some landscaping and construction projects I am about to get started. It arrived on Friday. On Saturday night, the guy across the street from me dragged a bunch of large furniture, assorted smaller items out of his garage and tossed them into my dumpster. There's enough crap to have filled roughly 3/4 of the dumpster. My security cameras captured the entire thing. I have saved the footage and backed it up. The neighbor denied the everything when I told him that he's gotta get his crap out of my dumpster. He became belligerent and threatening when I mentioned the footage, then slammed the door in my face. His perspective is that it's not on his property, so it isn't his problem. I called the police right after this exchange. The responding officer, while sympathetic to my situation, told me that it's not a law enforcement issue and I'll have to sort it out with my neighbor or take him to civil court. Pickups need to be scheduled in advance to have the dumpster emptied, the first of which will be next Monday. The dumpster company is booked solid for pickups through the middle of next week, so rescheduling is not an option. I have to pay for each pickup as well, so I'd be incurring extra costs even if they could come earlier. I have contractors starting a project on Wednesday morning, and they will fill the dumpster within a couple of hours of getting started if the neighbor's crap is still in there. The dumpster should have been more than large enough to handle the trash that they generate between Wednesday and Friday. I legitimately don't have anywhere to stash this guy's crap without interfering with their work, nor do I have an alternative solution for the waste that they'll create. I am also obligated to provide a dumpster and deal with the waste removal per the terms of our contract. If I don't get this figured out by then, I'll have to reschedule with these guys. I know that they're already booked through the summer. I scheduled my job well in advance for just this reason. If I have to reschedule these guys, it will lead to a domino effect. Most of the other contractors I have booked will not be able to start their projects till this one is completed. I haven't looked over all of the stuff I've signed and done the math yet, but the money I'd have to eat for canceling/rescheduling these jobs is pretty ducking significant. This is in an unincorporated part of the county with no municipal bulk waste pickup. You have to take it to the dump yourself or hire someone to do so, which explains my neighbor's motivation for borrowing my dumpster. I'd be happy to get this guy's crap hauled off and just take him to small claims court to recoup whatever I pay to do so, but I've looked into countless options to make this happen and none of them will be able to get it done within the necessary time frame. My expenses will be significant enough to take this well outside of small claims territory if it doesn't get sorted as soon as possible. I'd really like to avoid having to take this to regular court because of the time and money involved, but I haven't been able to come up with a solution that will mitigate my expenses enough to do so. The only thing I can think of at this point is tossing this guy's trash in his driveway and hoping that it doesn't wind up starting World War III. That said, I am not particularly concerned about doing irreparable harm to our relationship. As far as I'm concerned, that ship has sailed. I'm really just looking for any suggestions that will lead to this getting squared away before Wednesday morning, so any general advice along those lines would be extremely appreciated. I know I'm supposed to have a specific legal question here, so what kind of consequences might I be looking at if I decide to just toss this whole stuff on his driveway/lawn tomorrow? Update. The officer who responded to my initial call wound up calling me yesterday morning to ask for an update on the situation. I told him about the contractors coming by later that afternoon and my plan to sue my neighbor to cover the cost. He said he wanted to take another shot at getting this guy to do the right thing and came by about an hour later. The neighbor's wife actually wound up answering the door this time, and it seems like her husband had told her a very different story about the situation. Long story short, she came over to apologize and told me that her husband and son would start clearing their crap out within the hour, and she was true to her word. I called the contractor once the dumpster was nearly empty to let him know everything had been sorted out so he wouldn't have to spare a few guys to deal with it, and he was happy to hear that as well. The neighbor's wife actually came by again with a huge plate of homemade cookies as a peace offering a couple of hours later, which was very much appreciated. My parents actually opened up a bakery after my father retired, and my father was already planning on coming up here for the weekend, so he's going to bring a big box of treats for me to give them in return as a no hard feelings offering. I'm still not thrilled with this guy's behavior, but his wife is an absolute sweetheart, and it looks like the son had sort of been pressed into service by his father. I'd rather maintain a decent relationship with my neighbors if possible either way. As of now I've got a crew of guys working in my garage and they are absolutely bumping some bachata, which makes me feel like I'm back home in the Bronx but with a much bigger backyard. All in all, it seems like things have been completely and amicably resolved. Thank you to everyone who commented on my original post with suggestions. The next story is titled, "Family's Lake House Looks Like It Was Robbed." That's only the beginning of the tale. Indiana. So, my mother has a house. Been in our family for almost 100 years now. Never had a mortgage. Never had home equity anything. Ever. Mom up to date on property taxes. No tax sale, nothing. I went out to the lake house to get some of my stuff. While maintaining it year-round, grass, weeds, etc. It is a summer lake house. And we use it for storage, etc. When I entered the house, it looked like someone had broke in. So, I asked a neighbor. She said the bank took it, and so here we are. I called and filed a police report of all stolen items, that I'm assuming the people the bank hired took, and the police officer is to call my mom tomorrow after he figures out what he can. He informed my mom there is a law where if you care for a property for more than 30 days you can lay claim to the property. However, my mom had hired a guy to take care of the property and the bank's vendors turned him away. My neighbor says they entered with a key, and I can still get in with mine. I am the sole person with a key. My mom doesn't even have one. How is all the possible? The officer told us to be sure we aren't charged with trespassing to not come back. However, he let me get all my stuff. My mom got no notice, no legal transfer, no nothing. How is any of this legal? Can someone explain? Or what do we need to do? Edit another question. My mom talked of changing the locks on them and was wondering how good or bad idea that would be. Edit 2. They also have a padlock on the back door but didn't change the front door locks, which I don't get. Edit 3. To clarify, there is a sign-in sheet in the home that vendors are supposed to sign when they work on the home. With the name of the bank in the header. There is also a sticker on the front window with a number to a security company that is employed to secure homes for banks. The bank has winterized it and has already started replacing the roof and has done the gutters. Sorry for those of you wondering if it is just neighborhood gossip. Edit 4. Wow, I appreciate all of you saying to move back in the house is livable, but there are repairs that need done and the house is 45 minutes from town. If I didn't have kids, I'd be out there in a heartbeat. But my boyfriend and I were living out there up until February 2019 and had to move out because we were far from town. The electric bill was through the roof. 4 kids make that hard, because the house is not insulated to be a winter home. And it just reverted back to a summer home to swim fish storage. Also asked mom to run a credit check. She says she already has credit monitoring set up and gets daily notifications. Nothing weird has been reported to her credit. No equities or the like. Update for now. Sergeant coming to take my mom's statement today. We are waiting. They spoke on the phone for a good hour. He pulled up her deed while on the phone and said he sees no cases for a lien or foreclosure. He is stumped, but working. He is going to call the security company. Again, cannot reach the bank or ATI until Tuesday. Update 2 from May 26, 2020. My mother got a hold of the bank today who said they had no record of the address in their system. However, they did have a completely different lake house in their system. They said they had no financial interest in the house at all. They directed her to their real estate company in our county. He said he hasn't had a house at the lake in many years. She then contacted the property preservation company that secured the house. The CSR got very frantic asking for the burglary report case number. And again, told her someone would call her. She also stated our address was not in their system. She hired a locksmith at the direction of her attorney, and we went out there and placed warnings and changed locks. The locksmith informed us they actually didn't have a key. As previously stated, I was the only one with a key, and they credit carded the door and replaced the lock in the back and just said duck it when it came to the front door. Neighbors took pictures of our license plates but didn't call the police, so I'm in fear something bigger is going on. But now it's just up to the DA to find someone to press charges against in civil court for emotional damage and loss of truly invaluable things that they stole while renovating. Final update from June 6, 2020. Detective solved the case. Property preservation company is claiming full responsibility. They had the wrong house. None of the houses they owned out there had lot numbers on them in their system, so they just assumed and went with it. Yes, my mom is in contact with her attorney before she settles. There is so much more that goes into this than just $30,000 worth of missing things. She asked if the DA is going to take the case. He said they could, but he advised her to contact her ATI Monday before making that decision. The Lake Association had their monthly meeting, at which time the president informed everyone that the no trespassing signs weren't real. So, my take on the neighbors is they are just a holes. But the detective called and talked to her, so I'm sure they are aware now. I just am ready for it all to be over, and I appreciate the amount of notice this has gotten here. My family is very impressed with all of you. The last story is titled, Good Landlord vs. Bad Landlord. Decisive Victory. Background. I'm a real estate developer and investor, and I own/manage several mid-size multi-family rental properties. I'm aggressive with rents, but I love the construction side of the business and take great pride in keeping my properties in excellent condition. I also ensure my staff provides top-notch customer service. I never understood why property managers don't have the same attitude towards customer service as hoteliers. Anyways, one of my friends lives in a building owned by a very traditional landlord. A grumpy old lady bangs on the door to collect rent every month. Things don't get fixed unless you threaten to file a dispute, and in general everything is fixed as cheaply as possible. My friend called me last week and said her fire alarm has been going off since 3 a.m. Not the fire alarm actually, but the warning tone on the annunciator panel. This is the device that receives inputs from heat detectors, smoke detectors etc. all around the building and monitors and provides power and battery backup. This panel was apparently detecting a fault and sounding the warning tone. This isn't the fire alarm, but it sounds like a loud smoke detector going off. It cannot be silenced until it is serviced. In my buildings, they occasionally do go off, every few years, and, as with everything else, my staff must attend within half an hour, and in this case, appropriate action would be to call the fire safety contractor for an emergency service call. My friend's landlord informed her that the contractor had been called, but it was not an emergency, so they would be there in 4 days. 4 days of this alarm going off 24/7, constantly, no sleep for anyone. This was likely to avoid the overtime surcharge for an emergency service. Or about $150. But the manager was kind enough to wrap the panel in several towels with packing tape, to slightly muffle the alarm. He made a half-hearted attempt to silence it by pulling the leads off the backup battery. Since the device is hardwired, this just doubled the frequency of the alarm to include a backup battery warning. I grabbed my panel keys and went over to see if I could help my friend out. I was able to open the panel, since I have keys for my own, and they are the same. The battery leads had been pulled off, but the main was still connected, so the beeper was going off like crazy. The manager didn't know enough to turn off the breaker in the electrical room, and I couldn't access it. The manager didn't answer the phone. Upon opening the panel, I saw immediately why it had been failing on and off for years. According to my friend, the batteries were 10 years out of date, and the leads on the terminals were blackened. It looked like the landlord had been swapping out the old batteries with new ones for the yearly inspection, then putting the old ones back in and maybe returning the new batteries for a refund. Now I realized why the service call was scheduled so late, so the LL could get some temporary new batteries put in time. Now, I'm a licensed property manager, but not an electrician, so it would be unethical for me to remove the hot lead from the bus bar and silence the alarm. But low voltage wiring is a different story. Unfortunately, my insulated screwdriver slipped as I was tightening the battery lead back on, and I accidentally bridged the hot side of the bus bar with the low voltage side of the circuit board. Luckily, my eyes were averted to avoid arcing injury. 120 volt right to the control board. Ouch. A big flash, breaker tripped somewhere, and silence. The circuit board was toast. The service tech would have to install a new panel with new batteries. My friend contacted the landlord and reported that something had happened, and the panel was silenced. Also, did he intend to provide a 24-hour fire watch until such time as the fire alarm system is fully functional as required by Section 6 of the Fire Code? He affirmed that he did not, and that she could duck off. Her next call was to the Assistant Chief Fire Inspector, since she happened to have his business card handy. His response was much more gracious. He was happy to provide the necessary fire watch and contacted the landlord to inform him of the fact. The firemen's union is a strong one, and their hourly rate for emergency services like this are comparable to a midtown Manhattan law firm. I'm told the bill reached $3,000 before the landlord called the service tech to replace the annunciator panel. I'd like to say he also paid the $5,000 fine, but I understand he is fighting that in court. In the meantime, the building sleeps peacefully with a fully functional and up-to-date fire alarm. Thanks for listening.